Hello, can you hear me in the back? Okay, I apologize for that. I think they're oh, it's there, excellent. Okay, so I've been asked to speak about the trends in the automotive vertical, and is doing so to correlate those trends to order-to-cash concepts. So I'm with Delphi Automotive. And Delphi is the leading supplier of automotive technology to OEMs and vehicle manufacturers and commercial vehicle manufacturers. So real quick about Delphi. Delphi is a $16.6 billion company. We have 166,000 employees globally. We operate in all 4 regions. We operate in 46 countries. We have 155 trial balance submitting entities, and we ship 83 million parts per day. So a very large company. A little bit about me. I actually started with General Motors 40 years ago, just short of 40 years ago. And Delphi was the automotive components group of GM. We spun off. And of course, we've become leaner over time. We have 3 operating divisions and 1 aftermarket group. So, sticking with the deep dive, we've put the trends into various swim lanes, and we only have about 5 or 6 slides. Piotr will end it. I think we have minus 18 minutes. But Piotr's only got 46 slides, so don't worry. Okay. Traditionally, our portfolio has been any automotive manufacturer that you can name. So even in China, Brilliance, Great Wall, Skoda here, any OEM. So those are our key customers. The Pareto rule kind of applies. You know, that's 80% of our dollars, maybe 20% of our customer numbers. Then we have the aftermarket. So I think you guys are familiar with Speedy. If you're in the US, you would know Napa and CarQuest. This is where we have parts on the shelf, prior model year parts that we sell in the aftermarket or to dealers. And then lastly, we have our competitors and our comparators. So maybe they'll quote with Fiat on some type of a part, and we've been selected to provide something that goes into their overall component. So those are our customers. But OEMs are diving into the high technology space. So when I was starting out, the big 3 were Ford and Chrysler and GM. Your kids will probably see Tesla, Google, and Uber as the big 3. So we're migrating much more into to be a technology company. And as such, order-to-cash should keep up with that technology. So I should say that we're structured as Global Business Services, GBS. We have shared service centers in Shanghai, in Krakow, and in Hyderabad, India. So I'm responsible for order-to-cash globally for Delphi, and that includes everything from order entry through billing, collections, reporting. You didn't hear me say cash application. That's done in Hyderabad in our back office. So they're part of our overall team. So the order-to-cash technology, and this is interesting to me, is that we're all saying the same thing, completely different industry verticals, but we all use the same tools, and we all have the same issues and risks. So predictive analytics, we link our workflow tool with D&B and Credit Risk Monitor to do some trend analysis, and by looking at the credit scores, try to predict bankruptcies. We have a workflow tool. We use rapid process automation. We do robotics in our cash application team in Hyderabad. And we use third-party agencies, like, for example, Atradius is a partner of ours. Okay, so robots have been part of automotive technology since the 80s and 90s, but as I mentioned, we're moving into a much more high technology environment. So I did come up with a question. I didn't load the app because my grandkids and kids weren't here to help me load it on my iPhone. But this is the question. So this vehicle, either A, had, so the question is, how many people are driving this car? Okay, think about that. How many people are driving this car? And how far did it go? So 0 and across the country from California to New York City, 1 in the back seat and from Google to San Diego, 1 remotely and from northern to southern California, and an engineer in the back and around the test track. So I think I'm supposed to say, load your app or something like that. It's the longest 20 seconds in the world. Okay. 40% of you got it correct. So it wasn't really a trick question. There were 2 employees in the back seat, engineers, but it did drive itself from San Francisco to New York City in 2015. It was an Audi SUV equipped with our autonomous vehicle technology. It also proves, well, I shouldn't have done that. It also proves one other thing. I really enjoyed, I think it was the second presentation today with the psychologist. It was very, very insightful, right? I wish he was here because we have to correct one thing. I'm certain that he said that you couldn't drive and text at the same time. Now you can. Okay. Next, supply chain financing. I think somebody might have mentioned that earlier as well. But in the aftermarket, the car parts suppliers and like Speedy and Napa and CarQuest and others are providing and requiring very lengthy terms, 180 days up to as much as 364 days. So one of the trends in the auto industry is to take advantage of supply chain financing, where we work with the customer and the customer's bank, and at a discount, we can go in and pull down cash to get the cash quicker. Similar to factoring. In the legal and regulatory swim lane, we have the billing landscape, especially in China and Europe. There are a lot of requirements surrounding billing. So there's archival requirements. We now have self-billing customers, and we have this issue of confirming shipments in Europe. It creates compliance issues, and it adds work. So it may seem strange that I have robotic automation on here, but if you think about it, so we're also a mature shared service center. So we have transactional, we got the initial labor arbitrage that everybody gets, and then we partnered with our BPO, with our captive in Krakow, and so now we're about adding value. It's really end to end. I no longer have any Delphi managers in Troy and Hyderabad. The BPO manages the entire process, including the policies, journal entries, reconciliations, provision for bad debt. So truly end to end. So how can we expand into other countries, low-cost countries, and China? Well, we do that through adding value. And one of the ways you can add value is the synergy of centralization, and another way is through using the robotic automation to show them that you can actually reduce their FTE and you can bring it in. And it's a way to offset some of these other issues that we run into. I won't talk about, in the interest of time, banknotes in China. If any of you do business in China, sometimes you get paid by banknotes. It's a drag on your cash flow. The ERP system is going to say your DSO is 60 days, but if the banknote doesn't mature for 90, then it's obviously a drag on your DSO. So what we do is we pass those banknotes on to our supplier, and part of the value we added in China was having a centralized view into that, because the board of directors is very risk adverse to holding banknotes for a lengthy period of time. Okay, what risks? Well, we already talked about this today in length. Regional economic issues, global political uncertainty, phishing attacks, really, really big. We've averted a lot of attacks, and several of those have come from the UK. Large supplier bankruptcies and warranty issues. Each industry seems to have a little bit of a different level of risk. In our case, it's warranty, and Takata's a good example, filing the largest, the biggest product recall in history with their airbags. Local regulation, and a focus on SOX controls. I'm not sure how many of you are U.S. GAAP-based companies, but there's a new revenue recognition, FASB. So there's the complexity in Europe of doing business in your local books and in your U.S. GAAP books. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Piotr. He's our operations leader at our Krakow Shared Service Center.